started to build this online shopping mall of boutiques. And when we started to bring these stores together, what I realized was they didn't need a shopping platform. Like, they didn't need the dream that I had, but what they needed was each other. Like, there was no community teaching them how to grow their business because they were all like stay-at-home moms and teachers and nurses, and they didn't have a business background, but I did. And I'm a believer in it's not what you know, it's who you know. Like, I'll connect all the people. So I just started to pull in all the resources I could find. And pretty soon the Boutique Hub went from this online shopping mall to this like global community. And it just blew up after that point.
Welcome, everybody, to the Pay It Forward podcast. I am one of your hosts, Austin Seward, along with my co-host today, Keegan Walls. And today we have the pleasure of interviewing Ashley Alderson. So Ashley is a boutique retail, e-commerce, and online education company expert, the founder and CEO of the Boutique Hub. Ashley and her team focus on connecting business owners to the daily support, education, data, and wholesale tools they need to thrive. Grounded in the spirit of community over competition, the movement of the Hub has landed in the Inc. 5000 list in the last 5 years and a top 10 fastest growing company in the Midwest, as well as one of the top memberships on Kajabi, a leading global education platform. Everything, but at the core of what Ashley does is her people. Her mission runs deep to change lives, change families, and build communities. She has a heart for those with a big dream. And Ashley is a mom of 3, wife of 15 years to her CFO, and I would say Moose Slayer husband, Eric Alderson.
Moose Slayer.
Barrel racer, cancer survivor, Will Ferrel fan, and old lady basketball player and jewelry junkie. So thank you for being here today,
Awesome.
Ashley.
I'm so happy
We
to be
are
here.
crazy excited to have you along.
This means we can do movie quotes, right?
That I'll leave that to Keegan.
I was
We were
warm.
talking about
I
that
think I might have
before.
gone through the whole Step Brothers script before you came in. So
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah.
exactly? Yep.
Yep.
So thank you for being here, Ashley. Why don't you share with us what is the Boutique Hub? Because I know I get a lot of people that ask me that and ask about you, and I guess I understand what you guys do, but explain a little bit of what you do and about your current success.
Absolutely. So even our own family sometimes asks us what the Boutique Hub is because there's really not a lot like the Boutique Hub out there. So our main mission is to connect boutique owners around the world. So when I say boutique owner, I mean like a mom and pop retailer, brick and mortar, or an e-commerce store, or even like a product-based business that sells wholesale into boutiques. So what we've been able to build over 10 years, it's our 10-year anniversary this year. We serve about 65,000 stores around the world. So every state in the 50 states and 8 countries that we serve. We've had some ups, we've had some downs, we've had some explosive growth. Today, our team is about 25 full-time around the world. We're all remote, and we put on live events. We launch courses. We have a membership of about 8,000 boutiques that we serve every single month, and we're just excited to really be the leading force in changing our industry.
Yeah, that is awesome. And top 10 fastest growing company in the Midwest. That's no joke. So
That was a really big honor.
yeah.
Huge honor.
yeah. So I imagine it wasn't always like that, right?
No.
Early on. So why don't you take us back to the beginning of the Boutique Hub? Where did it come from? Where was that idea founded?
Absolutely. So I'm originally from the fashion mecca. I don't know if you're familiar with it, North Dakota.
Yeah.
Growing up, I grew up on a ranch, and I just love the opportunity to travel and find unique things. So rodeo and ranching, that sort of thing is in my background, and it afforded me an opportunity to travel growing up. And whether I was in like a downtown in a big city or at a rodeo or a fair or something, I just loved finding these cool little independent retailers. And I would come back and think, man, how could I find something like this local to me? And for me personally, I felt like fashion was New York and LA, but what about the rest of us? Like, what about the Midwest? Where do we go? And boutiques were always the answer for that, in my opinion. So after college, I got into work in economic development and small business development. I ran a chamber of commerce and an EDC for a number of years and just fell in love with helping people and small businesses and helping them grow and succeed. And fast forward to an opportunity Eric and I had to move to Wisconsin, where he's from. We decided to leave North Dakota, come to Wisconsin, and I had to leave this job that I loved in economic development. And I thought, there's always been this one thing I wanted to do. I really wanted to create this online shopping mall of boutiques. So people like me from the Midwest could find these cool stores around the country and shop them directly. And this was before social was huge and e-commerce was a huge thing. So I literally took all the savings we had. God bless Eric, because he gave me his company bonus and was like, okay, let's figure it out. And I hired a random web developer. I started to build this online shopping mall of boutiques. And when we started to bring these stores together, what I realized was they didn't need a shopping platform. Like, they didn't need the dream that I had, but what they needed was each other. Like, there was no community teaching them how to grow their business because they were all like stay-at-home moms and teachers and nurses, and they didn't have a business background, but I did. And I'm a believer in it's not what you know, it's who you know. Like, I'll connect all the people. So I just started to pull in all the resources I could find. And pretty soon the Boutique Hub went from this online shopping mall to this like global community. And it just blew up after that point.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you never had a boutique of your own. This was just
No.
founded from
Isn't that the craziest story? People ask me that all the time.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, even my mom for a long time, she was like, you own a boutique, right? I'm like, Mom, no, I don't own a boutique. I just believe in connecting people. So I worked in retail since I was 14 in North Dakota, started in a flower shop. So I had retail experience and worked at the Buckle, but I never owned a boutique.
Yeah.
So it proved that anyone can do what you want to put your mind toward.
Awesome. So in those early years, that business model obviously has changed. Talk about that transition and how your business model then changed to what it is now.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point. Like, if you're a young person and you're wanting to start a business and everyone says, you have to have a business plan, you have to have it all mapped out on paper. I feel like I'm proof that you really don't. Like, you need an MVP. You need a minimum viable product to prove and then run with. Because what I had mapped out and how I like projected my finances and everything for this online shopping mall of boutiques, it didn't work. I just had to figure out how to pivot really quick and to find what did. So that was just like a huge turning point for me to go from like really failing in a lot of ways and struggling and, figuring out how we could sell like baby cribs and the random stuff we had in our house to buy groceries during that time into like making a big adjustment and getting a coach at that time and then turning it into what it is now.
So that time, I mean, you talk about selling things to make it work. Like
Yeah.
that's desperation, right? And,
Yeah.
How long of a period was that? What did that look like?
Oh my gosh. We launched in 2013 and we didn't change our business model and launch our online membership until like January 2016.
Okay.
So we had a lot of struggle in there. And, at the time, Eric was working full time. He was working in high level sales. He was traveling a lot. And we had 3 small kids. So it was a lot of famine for a long time.
Yeah. So early on in your journey too, and
Mhm.
when you're teaching boutique owners and connecting boutique owners, did you ever feel like you weren't qualified to teach them without owning a boutique of your own? Like, you had a business background, but you weren't necessarily a boutique owner. So did you ever feel like you weren't necessarily qualified to do that?
Yeah. I mean, imposter syndrome is real. So crazy thing happened. And I'll just say, like, never meet a man on Twitter and like trust they're going to do what they're going to say. Right. In this journey of figuring out what I wanted to do, I met this guy on Twitter and he was telling me he was going to start the similar business to what I had already had. He convinced me to team up with him. Like, let's create this business together. He convinced me to change the name of my company and like, let's go all in. And I went along with this for a long period of time. And this person and I worked together. Well, I kept saying, well, when are the legal papers coming? Like, let's make this formal. We've got money to deal with, all these things. And it was never happening, never happening, never happening. Really? And pretty soon, Eric and I were like, okay, something's up. We still haven't even met this guy in person. We see him on Zoom, but this is a fraud. And so I called him one day and was like, listen, deal's off. I'm going to take my company back. And the Midwest nice in me was so naive. I didn't change passwords to everything before I did this. And the second I got off the phone, our bank accounts were drained. Our email list was gone. I was blocked from my own Facebook groups I'd created. Like, everything I'd worked for at that time, about 3 years, was just gone.
Wow.
And I mean, that was the imposter syndrome of me thinking like, there's gotta be someone smarter than me to figure this out. And so I give Eric a ton of credit during that time because for me, it was such a critical, like, okay, do I quit and give up or do I keep going?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people in our life at that time that didn't necessarily believe in what we were doing, saying, oh, you're a mom of 3 kids. You should get a real job. This will never work. And Eric never said that to me. Like, he fully supported me and where we were at. And he was like, you can sit here and be mad, or you can make a choice of what you're going to do next. And I thought, I'm going to fight. So I just had to put the imposter piece aside and go, all right, one foot in front of the other. What is the next thing that I need to do? And I opened another Facebook group and I started to build back my email list and just started to serve people completely for free for a period of time. Like, hey, just see my intentions and see how I can help you. And I mean, karma comes around, and this person ended up scamming another group of boutique owners and got what was coming to them. But really, I got my community back. And shortly after that, I launched our membership site, which blew up, and it changed the direction of the business. But I had to get over the fact that I thought someone else would have it all figured out. And who is I to, provide this sort of education? But I just believe if you know 10% more than the next person, like, why not share that 10% with them? Why hold it in because you believe it isn't good enough or it's not enough, to help someone? 10% is always enough to help the next person get ahead.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that story. That's crazy. We've experienced similar things in real estate, of scamming people out of commissions and stuff like that. But that's crazy to see you overcome that adversity and come back from that and literally start over from scratch, because I don't think a lot of people.
So you never got any of that stuff back? You just had to rebuild everything that you'd worked 3 years for?
Wow.
Yeah. It was like 3 years got erased from what we were trying to build.
Wow.
But I came back with such a different mindset. Like, I had confidence that I didn't have before, because I believed like it was on me to figure it out, even if it was just one tiny step at a time. And it's all right. Like, I had this, and I knew no matter what, too, I had the support of those around me.
Yeah.
Like, everyone believed in me. Like, I'm going to support you whatever choice you make. And that makes a huge difference, too.
So I have a question. So how much of, in your opinion, is business momentum over time of like doing those activities for 3 years? And how much of it is just knowing, like, to start over from scratch? You didn't lose all of the knowledge that you had for the 3 years, but you lost some momentum. So how much of success in business is related to what you know and the activities that you do versus the momentum that you gain over time?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's such a split. I don't know if there's a good, like, I can't even say 80-20. It's such a split, because if I'm thinking about marketing, like, it is about momentum.
Yeah.
It's about consistency and showing up, and what you learn in the process is going to give you the education that you need and the knowledge that you need to propel you forward. But I just think sometimes we get stuck in, this is the way it's always been done. And we get scared to make a change out of that consistency. So it's both.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So was there a one point in that time, maybe it was the time that you got scammed out of that money, but was there one point in time, an event, a relationship, something that significantly changed the trajectory of the Boutique Hub?
Yeah, that was a huge piece of it, was getting scammed and figuring out, okay, it's on me.
Yeah.
But second to that, what I did next was, I don't know how this happened. This is like such a God moment for me. I had this random message in my inbox, like shortly after this all went down. And it was this woman who was a coach of high ticket offers. And I don't know where she found me. I don't know where we crossed paths, but she was just there. And I was like, okay, I've got to talk to this woman and learn more about like her style of coaching. And I started to work with her. I literally took everything, like what I had mustered up to save since the whole scam, and I put it into working with this woman. And Eric and I were like, okay, this is it. Like, we're going for it. And I started to work with her. And the best thing she did for me, really two things she did for me. Number one, I learned high ticket coaching offers, which was a big catalyst to jumping the Boutique Hub. But the second thing I learned was just money mindset. I didn't realize how much my perception of money, my perception of like worthiness or value was rooted in this like money story I had as a child. I had to rewrite a lot of that. Like, I came from a farming and ranching background, and like, we're hardworking and we DIY and we save our way forward. But I didn't realize I had like a warped version and almost a fear of money at the same time. I thought money was going to make me a bad person. So I was almost like stopping my growth before it ever started.
Wow.
So it was just a big eye-opening experience that now I feel fortunate I can share with other people.
Yeah. So that, how, for somebody who's looking to hire a coach, and from going through that experience of having been scammed and then putting your trust in somebody else that they're going to help you, and literally taking all of your money or a lot of your money to do that, like, what, for somebody who's considering hiring a coach, is, at what point does it make sense financially to do that? And at what point does it make sense that sometimes you just have to go out on a limb?
I mean, I think any more coaching's become the Wild West.
Yeah.
There's a lot of offers out there. And so your due diligence is really important. So what is this person's personal track record? What is their business? Are they willing to share what their business looks like? What do their clients look like? What do their clients have in common? Can you talk to their clients? Like, there's a lot of background work I think you need to make happen. But I think like finding a coach is also realizing anything you really need to know, you can find for free on Google.
Yeah.
We all can. And the reason that you hire a coach is just to put speed in the process. So where are you at? Like, can you find it on Google? Can you hold yourself accountable to implement it? Can you find someone close to you to help you, like, be held accountable? Or do you need to put speed in the process and find a coach?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So I know you're a cancer survivor, and I've read your article on that, and I can relate to that. Becca went through cancer. I don't know if you knew that. So I know what a toll that can have on somebody, on a relationship, on a business. Was that in the midst of all this going on? Was that before? Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, that was before all of this. And it is the thing that like gave me the mindset to persevere through what happened in the business. But the cancer story is way back. I was in college. It was a week before my 21st birthday. And I, at the time, was heavy like in the rodeo world. I was traveling and I came back to North Dakota, came back to my college apartment. And I was in bed one night, woke up in the middle of the night with this pain in my chest. And just like a knife was stabbing me in the chest. And I got up and I thought, I'm 20, I'm invincible, like what's ever gonna happen to me? And went back to sleep. And the next morning the pain was still there. And so I went to just a random walk-in clinic and random doctor, and they gave me some x-rays, the whole thing. And pretty soon they're like, hey, you should probably call your parents. Your parents need to be here for, a scan tomorrow. And we think this is lymphoma. I didn't even know what lymphoma was at the time. So here I am Googling and freaking myself out all night until my parents could get there. And so what they found just in a whirlwind of days was I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 2B, so cancer of all my lymph nodes, basically like from my belly button up. And what the pain was this like group of tumors that was pushing out of my chest. So at that point, I was also a rodeo queen. This is a random piece of history. So I had like big hair. That's like a rodeo queen has really big hair. So I started going through chemo, 6 months of chemo. They told me I was going to lose my hair, which, as a woman, like such a piece of who you are, such a piece of your identity. And ironically, like the day that I lost my hair, I was going into work and I'd started to wear my hair in a ponytail like for a long period of time because it was thinning. And I'd already gone and I'd gotten these 3 wigs. There was this great charity that gave me like 1 free wig to every cancer patient. So I got a free wig and bought 2, Brittany, Brandy, and Bridget.
Okay.
And they were living in the back of my closet. And I go into work one day and, that morning when I gotten into the shower, I like pulled my ponytail out of my hair. And when I pulled this ponytail out of my hair, like all my hair came out in my hands, like a big old just hairball. And I had thought about that moment. I prayed about that moment for such a long period of time. And I thought it was going to be like crushing. But for whatever reason, I was able to take that clump of hair, throw it in the garbage and get like little Brittany out of her box and figure out how to wear her. And when I went into work that morning, all my friends were like, hey, like, I really like what you've done with your hair. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do they know? Like they had no idea. Like all of a sudden I'd started to wear this wig. But I actually met Eric during that time. Okay. You'll have to ask him the story, but he met me when I was bald. He also had a pickup line that had to do with my hair, which I won't tell you guys in detail. He thought it looked nice and it was a wig. But I mean, it was through that moment. I went through 6 months of chemo, didn't have to do radiation, thank God. And I just learned a ton about what it really does take to persevere. I feel like, everything in life happens for some sort of reason, and there's good in every bad situation if you choose to look for it. But I think far too often we just don't choose. We choose to be the victim versus like being the victor of the situation. So I was really fortunate, I think, at a young age to have that lesson because it's shaped everything I've done since.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
did you have like other lessons, or was there a pivotal moment in there? Because obviously, I mean, we talk about business. Our show is about business, and there's ups and downs. But there's a whole new level when you're talking about cancer in life, right? Like, okay, you can get your stuff scammed and, okay, you lose all your emails.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different hurdle to, like, it's life, and it puts perspective on it of just how fleeting our life can be. Yeah. Were there other lessons or key things that maybe God showed you in those moments, or moments you've learned yourself that you've taken into your business, right? It just transforms your view on life.
Yeah, it changes everything. So I think about business not from like a financial outcome perspective, but I believe like success in business follows people. When you put people over profit, everything else will fall into place. And for me, like what I was shown in that moment, like when people will say, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do later in life? I always knew it was 2 things. I want to do something that no one's ever done before, but I want to change people's lives. So for me in the cancer moment, I knew it wasn't about anything earthly, but I knew why I was here on this earth. And I knew it was to have an impact on other people. So it changes how I operate the business in every perspective.
Yeah. That's all. I mean, yeah, we've talked about that before too.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's people and everybody has their why, or why do I do something? And over again, the people that have answered it, it's about people and it's about change and giving value and actually helping, as opposed to my business is just pushing this product.
Yeah.
They have more success, but they also have a more well-rounded success, because it's like, what gain do you have in a way of, I push this product and maybe the product does well, but I'm not helping her anything. Like, it's just about it's just about profit. I just think the world eats that up sometimes of like, get rich, but it's so void of anything lasting or meaningful, in my opinion. So,
and especially I feel like in an economy where we're in today, like our industry, I would say globally is shifting right now, just with the change in the economy. So when that happens, if you're so focused on the profit, like your worth and identity becomes tied to that. And it becomes really hard to ride the waves of ups and downs. And I think to be successful in business, you have to be attached to something far bigger than the profit, or that down wave will absolutely eat you alive. Yeah. So when your business has a down moment, like I can go back to, well, that's okay, because I know what my purpose is here. And yeah, we're going to figure out how to be financially stable. Like we'll figure that out, even if it's tight. We've done it before. Yeah. We've proven to ourselves we can do it. But as long as I'm still making the impact, everything else I know will fall into place.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. So you've been able to build a team of 25 people. Everybody's remote, right? So how do you find those people remote? How do you build a culture if everybody's remote?
Yeah. I think it's a God moment. I feel like everyone on our team has been placed in our life on purpose, whether we hired them on Indeed or it was a friend or, whatever the circumstance was. I feel like they came with purpose, but we're so big on culture. And I feel like we have to really get to know everyone, and they have to have the same values that we do. We have to really be tied on that level of being hardworking and being perceptive and being creative. Like our company culture and core values, we lead with that in every time we hire, every time we do reviews, every time we fire, it leads with those values first. And so we've been blessed to have people that are just as tied to our mission of changing people's lives as we are. So they naturally want to work really hard because they can see the impact they're having on others along the way.
Yeah. Logistically, how do you maintain a culture though? You can hire based off of people's values at the beginning, but the ongoing operations of the business, if you're not sitting in the office with somebody and having camaraderie, how do you maintain that culture throughout the time that they're there?
Yeah. So a couple things. I'll tell you about EOS. That's been huge for us. But we do this quirky thing. It's going to sound so lame. Okay, we all love tacos, right? Okay. So we, as a sign of our appreciation for one another, we give each other tacos. Okay. So we communicate in Slack. That's our number one go-to. And then we Zoom all the time. And very specific meeting intervals for our entire team and sub-teams. But when someone does something that's great, we award them by saying I'm going to give you tacos because you did this. And I might send someone a taco in the mail. I might get them taco sticky notes. We'll do taco emojis.
Really?
Everything's about tacos. On our monthly all-team meetings, we spend 20 minutes with a taco platter. This is so weird, I know. But we'll go around the room and everyone has a chance to speak. And they're like, Austin, you crushed it. You did this for a customer. I'm going to give you tacos. And then you go and you give it to the next person. So rather than focusing on what people aren't doing right, we really implement what are they doing well and reward it and celebrate it. And then they want to move into that culture. So the taco thing, quirky.
I love it. I hope if there's one thing Austin takes away from this is that in our work relationship from now on, when I do a good job, I get rewarded with food.
Donuts?
Donuts. Ours would be donuts. Oh my gosh. It wouldn't be good because of the amount of donuts I eat. But yes, I think we should instill this because I feel like I've done a great job and then worthy of a taco or a donut or a steak or a burger or take me to the Charmant. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll work way harder, I promise. So
that's
a good love language.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned EOS. For those that don't know, what's EOS?
EOS, we just started to implement this about 2 years ago in our business. So EOS is, it all comes from a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. It stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And as we were growing and scaling our business, I was finding that I was the bottleneck of the business. Our organization was flat. Everything was funneling through me. Yes, we had meetings in Slack and all some organization structure, but still I was the bottleneck. So we found a implementer in Arizona that we could work with. Like, it's one thing to read the book and try to self-implement, and some people can do that. We knew we would probably fail miserably in that department. So we hired an implementer to meet with our team quarterly, and he helped us develop a leadership team structure, really like iron out our entire like team, like roadmap, our accountability structure, how we measure success, company scorecards, just like everything in terms of our day-to-day operations and processes, and get all of our team really pulling in the same direction. Another big thing that we really worked on with EOS is, anyone can set annual goals. Every company does. But in EOS, you break down like your 5-year vision into your 1-year plan, into your quarterly rocks, and then everyone on our team is accountable to rocks.
Yep.
So that's been great for us just to be laser focused, because as a visionary of the team, so I'm the big thinker and the squirrel, I probably drive them all nuts because I have like 8,000 ideas and we can't ever get anything done. So this holds me accountable to just stick to like, what are we actually going to accomplish this quarter, and not let me go off in the weeds.
Yeah, we've done that as well, and I find business growth happens quarter by quarter by quarter by quarter, and I'm the same way. Big dreams, big visions, and all these things I want to do, but sometimes you find yourself just doing what's in front of you, and just thinking that this is urgent and that's urgent, and not really prioritizing the big picture. And quarters go very fast, like 3 months go very fast. And looking at your goals and, man, I really didn't make enough progress on this, or maybe didn't touch on it for 3 months. So that's been great for us to identify the core values, put everything on one page of what your quarterly rocks are, your vision, your 3-year picture, your 10-year vision, all of that. So we didn't hire an implementer to do it because we didn't have a budget to do that right now, but that's been foundational for the success of us. We did that for our podcast when we started the podcast. Awesome. First thing we did, let's sit down. We got to fill out a VTO for the podcast.
I love that.
And identify where do we want this thing to go? What do we want to talk about? Who do we want our audience to be? So, big fan of that. If people haven't read the book, Traction, and there's other supplementary books that go along with it in that library too.
Even if you aren't ready to do like full on traction, if you read the book Rocket Fuel, and Rocket Fuel just breaks down like the VI relationship. So I'm so blessed. I've always had an I. So visionary is the big thinker. The I is the integrator. So it's like your right-hand person. So I have an I that literally like finishes all the tasks for me and like really keeps me on a path. And I mean, she's been with me for so long. She started by babysitting our kids and like worked up into doing like data entry and cold emailing and all the way up to doing operations for our company. So you can really start, even if you're a really small company, just with those two pieces.
Yeah, cool. Let's talk about Eric a little bit, your husband. You guys work together.
Yeah.
How is the spousal relationship and business dynamic work for you guys?
Good. Now it takes a minute. Working with your spouse is such an awesome opportunity, and we're so blessed. Like, we wanted this for a really long time. And so like the moment that we decided it was going to happen, it was like we needed a little push to get there. And so Eric had kind of a near miss at work, like a very dangerous incident that really could have cost him his life. And that was an eye-opening, like, okay, I've got to make a change moment. And at the same time, like literally a month after that happened, he came to it was our second ever business conference we hosted. We sold out 500 seats for a business conference in less than 24 hours.
Wow.
And he came and was like, wow, what are you doing? I need to be a part of this. And so we figured out a way to work him out of his career so he could come and run CFO position here for the hub. And he'd had a background in banking, so it all made sense. But the hardest part, I think, when you're really getting to work with your spouse is knowing your role. Like, it really is some give and take for a long time to figure out what's your lane and what's mine, and how do we not offend one another by stepping outside of what those lanes are. But I feel like we're really in a great spot right now. Like, he has such a clear role that is so beneficial to our team. It's very back end. It's all the HR, it's all the contracts, it's all the finances. And I'm so front facing that we don't step in each other's lanes anymore. And it's been awesome for us. It allows us to work remote. It allows us to travel with our kids. It allows us to be flexible. So huge opportunity if you can get through the tricky parts of figuring it out.
Yeah.
How long did it take before he jumped on? Because he's full-time now, I'm assuming?
Yep.
So how long was that? Or how long ago did he make the jump into the full-time?
Yeah, I want to say like 5 years ago.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, something like that.
Awesome.
So about halfway point of our business it took to get there.
Do you ever think about like not hiring him? Like, I don't know, I gotta interview you and see if you like meet the credentials.
I try to fire him all the time. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. No, I don't know. We always knew. We always knew we wanted this. So it was a clear path for us to get him on board.
What's some advice that you give to spouses that work together?
You know, one of the biggest is I think you have to know communication, like what is work communication, what's marriage communication, and at what times of day do those happen. So I pick on Eric because in the first thing in the morning, he talks to himself in the shower. And so he's like full on work mode and he's like figuring all the things out. And then he gets out and he wants to tell me about it. And I'm like, whoa, I just want to be your wife for a minute. Like I want to talk about the kids and our day and our relationship before we get into that. So we have to over communicate. And I think if there's ever like moments where we really struggle, it all comes back to communication and how we communicate and give grace to one another. So communicate, set some boundaries, you know, like set some clear dialogue opportunities and go from there.
Yeah. Do you think identifying like working on each other's strengths and weaknesses?
Oh, yeah.
And making sure you're complementing each other in that is important as well?
Yeah, I think that's really like knowing your role.
Yeah.
So Eric tried to do a Facebook Live with me one time and it was like full scale Ricky Bobby panic. And then he didn't know there was a delete button. So he had like agony for a long time that he didn't know we could delete this Facebook Live. And I was like, I got this. And so, yes, he knows his role. I know mine. And we really try to like complement, support each other in that.
You don't think he would be a good face of the boutique hub, Eric?
He would be. He would be great, but he might panic from time to time.
Yeah. Is there like any success stories that you could share of maybe some clients of the boutique hub that stand out in your mind?
Oh, gosh. You know, I would say clients, like we've had some clients go on Shark Tank, which has been really cool to witness. We've had clients get picked up like in major retailers, which I think has been really cool to see. I'm trying to think if there's any locally, like there's local boutiques that we love that have been a part of our community, local brands. Gosh, yeah, just all kinds of.
Yeah.
Did any of them make a deal on Shark Tank?
We had a couple that made a deal on Shark Tank.
With
yeah,
who?
yeah.
You know who?
So one success story was Makeup Junkie Bags. She made a deal with Lori.
Okay.
We had another Lit Handlers, and I want to say she made a deal with Mark, but I got to look back at that. We had another, the Red Dress Boutique, who's been a part of our community. She made a deal with Mark, but she ended up buying her deal back out a few years later and talks about how it wasn't a good experience.
Really?
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty crazy. So that's awesome. Shark Tank.
For sure.
Yeah.
Big time.
Well, let's talk about digital marketing a little bit. I know that's a huge part of what you do and the success that you've had. So what advice would you give to somebody who maybe doesn't have a really large team and they don't have a fully developed content strategy, but they want to start somewhere? What advice would you give to that person?
I love content strategy, so I want to start there first. This is like my go-to every day to talk about. I think the first thing is obviously knowing your customer. Like you really have to get specific. When you target everyone, you reach no one. So the more you can survey and really understand who the demo is, everything else comes from there. But when I start to build out like a high level content strategy, I always pull from 3 buckets. I think of it like a recipe.
Okay.
I'm baking a cake. First ingredient is obviously your sales related content. So this is the product I have. This is how I'm going to sell it. A very clear call to action of what is the outcome I want from this content. The second is branded content. So what is all the behind the scenes of the brand? Who are you as an individual? What's your authenticity? Why do I want to be in community with you? Because every good business, I think, builds community first, and then the products and the profit will follow. But if you have community, you can really sell them anything. So branded content. And then the third's engaging content. So I'm all for Facebook ads, but I hate like wasting money on Facebook ads, frankly, if I don't have to. So engaging content is an opportunity to just stop the scroll. So you might hate TikTok and you might not want to dance, but you might need to dance if that's going to make people stop the scroll and go, who is this guy? What are they doing? So that short form video that can be educational, it can be funny, it can be a question of the day, it can be something just relational of your personal life. You know, just like ask people this simple question and watch their heads explode. Brussels sprouts? Question mark? Just ask them, like on any channel, Brussels sprouts? Question mark? And they're like, pfft. Everyone has an opinion on it. So that doesn't have anything to do with real estate. It doesn't have anything to do with running a boutique, but it has everything to do with getting your customer to begin a dialogue with you, which tells the algorithm that now, oh, I like this person. I want to see more of their content. And now I can start to show them branded content and sales content because I have their attention.
So what % of your content should be each of those 3 buckets? Is it split a third?
I could say split a third, but sometimes I think people run a little light on the sales content and they get a little too focused on their relational. But I would start with a third, and then you have to measure your success and go from there.
Okay.
Iterate on your results.
I think you just opened up the door for Keegan's great ideas and video ideas on the podcast.
Are you going to dance?
Wait, do I have good ideas?
Well, your quirky videos and billboard ideas. And...
Okay, well, billboard, you'll have to go watch the other. I think I have some genius billboard ideas. I'll tell you after the show because some of our viewers have already gotten those. But yes, I do have lots of ideas, but then I run them through Austin, and they're a little out there.
Yeah,
so
they are very out there.
It's a weird space in my head. Like, people are always like, that's weird. And it's like, yeah, I know. I live with me like 100% of the time. It's like crazy.
So not only are you the CEO and founder of the Boutique Hub, you have 3 kids. I know you guys travel a ton. You got young kids in sports. How the heck do you manage your time? Like, how do you balance all that? Is there such a thing as balance?
I just really don't like the word balance.
Okay.
I think it's so fake. But what I would say instead is boundaries. I think that we've had to learn that the hard way is what is a boundary for our family versus like this idea of perfect balance doesn't exist. I think we're always in a different season of life. We just have to identify what season are we in. There's times where I have to hustle and travel at work. And there's times where, May through July, I don't travel at all because I'm just with the kids during that time. So every family's different, has to make the boundary. I'll give you a strategy. This is something that I came up with probably 8 years ago, and now I teach it to all of our boutiques. I think it's relevant to anybody. But I started this process called the 4-part to-do list. It's how I lead myself into the idea of time blocking, which time blocking, I don't really love time blocking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
It makes me feel a lot better.
Hour by hour feels like I'm locked in a prison. So I have to have some flexibility. So here's where I go with this. So list number 1 is if I just analyzed what are the non-negotiables of my business every single week, like clockwork, these things have to be done. It's business and family, really. I'm never going to miss a basketball game. I'm never going to miss, tennis match, whatever. And then I have to do marketing. I have to work with my vendors. I have to have team meetings. I have to have a date with my financials. Non-negotiables is list number 1. List number 2 is out of everything on my to-do list, what are the things I must do this week? So what's the 20% of my list that's going to get me 80% of the results? Those are my this week rocks. My list number 3 is my later list. So I put it on Trello and I'll sort it and prioritize it in Trello. And then list number 4 is what can I say no to and what can I outsource? Or where do I need to ask for help, really? Because if I'm the bottleneck of the business, which I normally am, I'm trying to do it myself. And I just need to recognize what's a $100 an hour CEO job versus what's a $10 an hour task that I should outsource and leverage. And so what I do with those lists is this idea, I call it CEO versus entrepreneur mindset. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're DIYing your way forward, you're saving your way, you're hustling, you just want to get done today better than you did yesterday. The business likely revolves around you and you don't have a great exit plan, right? And we all start as entrepreneurs, but you have to shift to be the CEO. You have to have strategy, you have to have long-term vision, you have to have an exit plan, you have to build a team around you. The business has to be bigger than you as an individual, all these things. So when I am in my CEO seat, I can take these 4 lists. And list number 1 becomes I won't say time blocking, but I'll say theme days or designated days. So on Monday, it's marketing. Our whole team's focused on marketing and content. Tuesday's team, leadership, staff, all the things, and so on. So list number 1 is time blocked into my calendar. And then I overlay that with what's my tiger time? Tiger time meaning this is when my brain is most productive. And if you try to take a piece of my tiger time, I'll bite your face off like a tiger.
I like that.
Yeah. So from 8 to 10 a.m., that's my time. It's when I get everything that's on my list number 2 accomplished without no interruptions, no meetings. It's just I'm going to get my stuff done. List number 3 just sits in Trello for me until I'm ready. Every week I'll assess, do I need to pull from list number 3 onto list number 2, or do I just leave it there? It's not a priority yet. And then list number 4, I challenge myself every week to say, all right, what am I still holding on to that I need to let go of? Where can I ask for help? Where can I train and teach my team to be more efficient or to take more of this on? That sort of thing. And maybe it's personal commitments on list number 4 too. But those lists have really helped me just to become
great. That's really good.
boundary
Where do you
focused.
keep list number 1 and 2? 3 is in Trello. Is it just notes on your phone or?
So it started we built day planners as a part of the boutique hub too. I don't know if I mentioned that. So we have like day planners that focus on these things, but I just do it in a notebook paper.
Sure.
I can just write down like what's my every week list number one. Once it becomes like, once I've done it a couple times, it becomes kind of routine.
Yep.
And that just is like the theme for how our whole company operates. So once I know, like as the leader, here's how I want the themes to work, then like the rest of our leadership team kind of functions the same way. So our marketing meetings are always Monday. Our leadership team meetings are on Tuesday. All of our coaching calls are on Wednesday. So everyone's on the same schedule as a team.
Yeah, that's great. That's good.
Yeah. So I got to bring it back to media because I got way more. I have so many more questions on that. So yeah, you talked about like content strategy because I think a lot of people go, okay, I post stuff, and then that's not your content strategy happens before you post.
Yeah.
What has been like the number one like driving force behind seeing success? Because like people say social media, and it's I mean, there's all different kinds of content strategy, and here's what you should do. And it can be overwhelming to people, and people just think algorithm. I have no idea. I'm not going to do it. Or they just treat it as like I'm throwing paint at the wall or whatever at the wall. And I'm going to see what sticks. And that's probably not a good content strategy either.
Yeah.
So like, what advice do you have to somebody, business, or even like people just starting out on a podcast? Of like the first thing that I have found like success. Like if you're going to take away one thing, do this.
Oh, that's such a good question. Okay. I love to begin with the end in mind. So we always start with what is the amount of traffic that we need to accomplish this goal? And depending on your business type, that's different, right? If it's a podcast versus if it's a boutique, I would say, I need this much content. And then when I'm selling physical products at this average order value and this conversion rate, I need this much traffic. Like I start with my sales and I equate sales to traffic. So whatever your business is, if you can equate sales to traffic and then you go into traffic and say, okay, well, where's the traffic going to come from? It's not just social media. You're right. People really like mix this up. To me, it's 3 buckets. It's social media, it's your paid content strategy, and it's email strategy. And from those 3 buckets, then we'll like really dish out how much comes from each, how much content do I need to put in each of those buckets, or how much money do I need to put in each of those buckets to see the return that I want. Then I get super nerdy. I would love to nerd out with you.
There's not even an audience. Okay. Like we're just on the same page right now.
Okay. So do you love spreadsheets?
Let's say yes for the sake of the conversation.
We're going to pretend you love spreadsheets.
I love them.
Okay.
I love them.
Here's what we do. So down the first column of the spreadsheets is all the days of the month. And then across all the rest of them are all the different channels that we're marketing on. So we run like 14 different Facebook groups, 5 Instagram channels, a couple TikToks, all the things, like all the channels. And then we'll say for Instagram, how many times do I post a day? Then it's a whole nother column. So I might have like 36 or 40 columns across the top. And that's our size, whatever. You might start with just 3. Facebook once a day, Instagram once a day. 1 email a day, let's say. So you've got your days, you've got your channels, and then we'll sit down for the month and we'll map out what content goes where out of each of those like kind of high level buckets that we talked about earlier, the branded, the engaging, and the sales content. So we'll lay out all of our content for the month. We'll put it in black. And then every Monday when we sit down as a team, we'll go in and we'll start to pre-schedule it all. Like we'll get the emails ready, we'll schedule them. We'll get the Facebook posts ready, we'll schedule them. Once they're scheduled, we turn everything from black to gray so that we know, okay, here's what the plan is. Then that allows us the flexibility of during the week, we can monitor traffic levels and we can measure like customer acquisition to say, all right, we're low here. We need to double down. Ashley needs to go do a Facebook Live. Or Sarah, who coaches on our team, she needs to go do an Instagram Live. But once you have everything like in the content plan, which is the foundation and basis for everything, then you can pre-schedule it and then you can monitor the results to really get you to the end goal. But if you're just scheduling in the moment, like, it's Thursday, I should post on Instagram, you're never going to have success because you can't really get to the end result and like monitor the fluctuation along the way.
Yeah, because have you gone deeper too to figure out like in my niche, like the different platforms of when and what type of content and how long? Because a lot of people don't do that either. Again, it's just, well, it's 8 a.m. I suppose I should post. And it's like, but 8 a.m. might not work well for your niche. How long did it take you to discover, or was it a lot of it like trial and error? Or did you or were you just like a genius right off the bat?
No, I will not take any credit for that. No, it was a lot of trial and error. And I feel lucky because I'm an elder millennial. So I grew up like in college, I guess social media started for me. So I feel like I watched these trends from the beginning, which the kids today, like they're wizards when it comes to this stuff. Yeah. And they're going to have AI telling them what to do and when to do it. So it's an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of trial and error just to figure out times of day, which now a lot of platforms will optimize it for you. Like our emails, we can send it at the best time of day, like per subscriber. Yeah. So
Really?
there's ways around
There's way
that.
better tracking now with the different platforms that super helpful and beneficial to the person posting.
Yeah. But a lot of people, this is a trap. Like I feel like a lot of people don't get into tracking. So I always say like a track number grows, but we're so focused on doing and working in the business and like posting the content that we don't take a step back and really track and analyze, okay, well, what worked and what didn't work and why, and what will I do different next week? It's hard to get to that point. There's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah. But I would say to people that are watching, again, you are way further than I am. So I'm not saying it from like a place of I'm the genius. But even what I've noticed is like a lot of people are scared because then they put out content and it might not do as well as they want. And then they become overwhelmed because they see everything they have to fix. But it's as long as you're consistent with it and it's okay, can I take one thing from the video and I'm just gonna do one thing better? Well, if I'm gonna be consistent, let's say I'm gonna post one thing of content a day for a year, so 365 pieces of content. Well, if I'm just even doing like incrementally better on each of them, okay, now this time I'm focusing more on my time, or like if it's a reel, here are my captions. If I can just do a little bit better each and every day, or even like break it down even less, like, okay, I have my content for the week. Can I next week just take one thing? What am I going to do better and learn from it? Like your content's going to be so much better. Like just start doing it and like grow from there. So
that's the biggest lesson is just start doing it. Like the videos you guys have done are incredible. I think I told you that one of the first times I met you. You just have to start and be incredibly, consistent and persistent. And if you're 1% better each time and you're doing it daily, that's 365%. At the end of the year.
Crushing.
It is crushing.
I would take that return. Like 365%. That's awesome.
Yeah. So. But most people just never start. They get overwhelmed and they never start. So I would say too, like focus on the channels that you really want to master first and then branch out. If TikTok's not for you, don't do it. If Instagram's really not for you and your ideal customer, don't do it. You don't have to be everywhere. If you're targeting everyone, you're reaching no one. So just really get specific.
It goes back to what you said at the beginning of just having a minimum viable product. Just start doing, start tracking what you're doing and learn and improve based off of that. So I'm getting an overwhelmed hearing you talk about spreadsheets and this cell is black, this one's gray. And
I can see in my brain. I'm like, that's all. I'm probably going to go steal that and do that.
So Ashley, how much of that was what you've learned versus the team that you've built around you? Like, because I could choose to become a master of that, but is that the best use of my time, or should I go find somebody who's a great digital marketer to do it, whether that's an employee or a third-party company?
Yeah, skills-based leadership. Like, do what you do best and hire the rest all day. It just so happened that, like, content and marketing were my sweet spot and my passion, but all the other things, like, God bless our team, because they fill in all the weaknesses that I have for sure.
Yeah. Great. Well, if there's one thing that you want to leave our listeners with today, the takeaway from this podcast that they can implement into their lives, their business, what would that be?
I think we talked about this earlier, but people over the profit and process over the product. I think the reason I love business so much is it becomes a game. Like I just love to play this game. I love to see how many people I can get to know and relationships I can form while I play this game, and like what is a lasting impact I can leave because of this game. So I think if you love that more than like this outcome, or you attach your worth or worthiness to some false outcome, like it's such a trap. So just make sure your focus and your intent is there. You're headed in the right direction. That's going to lead you through all the ups and the downs. That's going to leave you joy and fulfillment. And that's going to also leave you time with your family to really enjoy the purpose that you have here on this earth along the way too.
Love it. Awesome.
Well, that's amazing. So we want to, I think we end on that. That's a great note for our listeners. And thank you so much for coming on. And how about you let everybody know, because you have a podcast too, where can people...
That's not quite as successful as ours, but...
You guys are crushing it. This is awesome.
Well, I'm banking on they'll go and look at our podcast. That was a bluff. But where can people find like your stuff in terms of like your boutique hub, and then where can they find more stuff just to learn more about you, like your podcast and your social medias?
Theboutiquehub.com is everything Boutique Hub related. Our podcast is called Boutique Chat. If you have a boutique, you'll love it, I'm sure. And just me on Instagram, AJ Alderson on Instagram. It's where all the behind the scenes stuff happens.
Cool. Well, maybe I'll start a boutique just so I can come on your podcast next time. So
perfect.
Thank you, Ashley, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. This was great.
Awesome.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We sincerely hope that you learned something today. And as always, we appreciate your support and hope that you can all find a way this week to pay it forward.